It's not fun.
No,
So
being sick is not fun.
no, it isn't.
Hi, this is WGSN Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and Podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. We're back from part 2 of a deep topic.
I know, it's such a good topic. So last week we talked about the words that turn men and women on, and that was really fun. And we both talked about, oh, we can't say that. Oh, we can't say that till next week, because this week we're going to talk about the words that turn men and women off.
Right.
And I think, as last week, there are some similarities, that are kind of unisex, but then there's some that men and women are so different about their reactions, about the way that it's presented and the words that we use, that I think this will be even an additional good way of people going, oh, I never thought about it that way. I think there was a lot of that last week. Oh, I haven't thought about it that way. And this week there'll be a lot of that too, I think.
I definitely think if people watch last week's episode and this week's episode, they're going to get good value out of it and have a toolkit they can take with them, which is so good. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's so interesting. So many of the conversations I have with my male and female clients, they're always like, oh, I never thought about it that way. They're not doing it on purpose, and they're certainly not intending to be off-putting. And they don't really realize how the other person will react, because it's not how they would react. I mean, certainly we take into consideration personality styles, period. And certainly if the person, no matter what their gender is, that they have a little more masculine or a little more feminine in their personality, as always, we're going to do our big generalization, because it fits a lot of the circumstances in a lot of our population. So it doesn't hurt to start out with this and thinking, maybe I need to say it a different way, because generally if you thought about it and you present it in a better way or a different way, a more user-friendly way, you're not going to get yourself in trouble for doing it that way, where you could really get yourself in trouble if you do it the way that is off-putting.
Right. And the thing also isn't one thing we'll just break down, I don't know we covered. That's the other thing now. I think, like, what did we talk about last week? One thing we definitely want to be clear is that one of the ways to turn somebody off is to be too egotistical. Like too personal, like my way, this is the way I'm doing that, blah, 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 versus including the other person. Mm-hmm. So I think, I don't know, we just said last week about how it's good to ask questions to the other person to create invitational space and create a more safe place to be.
Yeah.
The opposite of that for this week is when a person doesn't create that space for the other person and doesn't really want to include the other person. That's really what's going on.
Yeah.
So the ego gets in the way. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we can unpack from this. I think it's going to be a good chat.
I think so too. And one of the things we talked about last week that's really important is to ask questions and clarify, is this what you meant? This is what I understood. So certainly something that puts people off is all the assuming that goes along. And, I'm sure lots of people have heard the way it gets broken down, that it makes an ass out of you and me, the word assume, because even if you really know, if you really think, most people like if you at least ask, is this what you meant? Gosh, it kind of struck me a different way. I'm not sure if you meant it this way. And so just going off in a whole nother direction without confirming and questioning is so annoying for both people, men and women. Nobody likes having assumptions made about us. We just get frustrated. And often the assumption is because of something that's happened in the listening person's background, that somebody else really meant it that way. So you just assume the other person means it this way. That's really a wrong path to go down. So just assuming is very off-putting for both men and women, for sure.
Well, I would say assume you don't know the answers.
That's a good way to look at it, Barry, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because the thing is that we do have this tendency as human beings to think we know somebody else without actually asking them who they are on many different levels, whether it's business or relationship or family, social, whatever it is. We often see somebody and we immediately paint a picture of that person. It's like, this must be true about them.
Yeah.
So you basically, we're pigeonholing them, putting them into little slots, which might be accurate, but 9 times out of 10 it's not. So this idea of it being open and asking and being invitational will definitely surprise you when you recognize that these people you think you know, you don't know. And especially in a relationship, if you keep the aspect of surprise in your questioning and your inquiry, it makes it more exciting, more fun, more joyful. And again, I know we're talking about turning things off, but turning things on, I know we're going to keep such back into last week, is the idea of having that constant, joyful experience of getting to know somebody else better. Because when we make assumptions, we undersell and we undertreat who we are, and also under value who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, definitely, I'll say, sort of be away from the idea of assuming stuff about people, because it's like you think you know somebody. I mean, I've talked to ex-girlfriends from years ago, and they've changed. I mean, I've changed dramatically in the last, since the last breakup. So I know that we all have that capability. Not everybody does, but most people do. So be open, be inquiring, and be willing to ask. It's a good idea. But turn them off. Don't do any of that.
One of the biggest differences, the words, one of them that I have found is most of the time, all the time, but most of the time, women really, all the time, they don't like feeling criticized. And often the way that we women react is we'll probably make an adjustment. We just will. We're trained from children to not make waves, not upset people. If we think we've upset them and we hear what upset them, okay, I'll do it differently. I'll try something differently. We're more malleable. And I know I could get so many letters about that, but it certainly was me. And I'm still susceptible to that. So because we feel like that's a positive reaction, that we go, oh, well, I want to fix that. I want to make it better. We are so hypercritical of men. We're constantly being helpful with picking things apart and suggesting things and wanting them to change. And what I found talking to men, especially when I used to do it a lot, and now I don't do it anymore, at least I most of the time don't do it anymore. And they tell me in my coaching, it is one of the most off-putting things for men.
Oh, yeah.
You guys go, even if I was thinking about doing it, I'm not sure I want to do it because you're being so critical about it.
Well, the thing with that is, and this is the thing that's hard for men, is to be vulnerable, to be open, and to let someone in. So if she comes along and starts to poke holes in our presentation, good, bad, or indifferent, and is critical of who we are and what we're about, it's kind of like that door's closed, period. There's no way I'm going to be open to you now.
Yeah.
So it is a deterrent for intimacy, for vulnerability, for connection when you criticize. And on the other side of the coin, men definitely, partly because I say that we're generally speaking are very visually attuned, is we are oftentimes attracted to somebody, and then the looks of what we enjoy and critique in equal parts sometimes. She's so hot, but her feet, or it's like we have this double thing going on inside our heads. I want to say it out loud, but we're inside, and I'm sure I know women feel this from men. They sort of feel that two-faced energy, and so it's not really an ideal path to lead with critique from either side of the conversation, frankly, because the thing is, as I said earlier, you want to ask questions, get to know the person, find out more about who they are. Asking them to explain more clearly, fine. But to deny or disqualify or to critique what they said, not fine. I mean, simple as that.
Yeah. And one of the challenges we women have, because we're so noticing all the details, we're always paying attention to the details. It's just in our DNA. There's a phrase that's been coined about the missing child syndrome. And I know about this because I notice something that's missing or something that's out of place. My poor little ADD brain has trouble with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to say something about it. I want to do something. My husband used to tease that when he'd go to the bathroom, I'd straighten the pillows where he'd been sitting. And I really wasn't. I didn't ever do that. I did straighten them every night before we went upstairs for bed.
Right.
I just needed to come down to neat pillows in the morning. And he would chuckle about that. He was not critical at all, but he loved teasing me that I took it to this crazy extreme.
Right.
And so if you know that about you, that you're just going to notice these little details, tell the other person that. And then I thought, how can we talk about the negative things and not talk about the ways to fix it. So I'm given a dispensation that we get to keep fixing whatever we say, because I can't just leave with these are the bad things to say, because they're off-putting, but how do you turn it around? Because it's what we spend our lives doing. So to do this, what I say is, if there's something that is a challenge about what the guy does, a big thing lately has been they chew with their mouth open. I've had women lately, this is a thing. They're meeting him on the first meeting and the man's chewing with his mouth open or talks with a mouthful.
How disgusting.
It's really, it's like rampant right now. I don't know what it is. So I said, is that a deal breaker for a second time? And most of them have admitted no, because they have a lot of other things about them. So I said, at the second meeting, what you get to say, and I'd love to hear your feedback about this, Mr. Selby, is these are all the things I've really enjoyed about you and why I wanted to go out a second time. And this thing is off-putting to me. And I'd be really grateful if you would work on doing that, because I really want to spend a third time with you. It might make it difficult for me. And I thought, maybe that would be okay. So what do you think, Mr. Y chromosome? Would that be okay for you?
Well, speaking for myself, I can't speak for the whole Y chromosome population, just to be clear.
I think so. Sometimes you just got to speak for them all.
Right. I would say that in that context, because the first thing is that she led with victory. She led with positive direction. She led with intention. And so the critique wasn't the first thing out of her mouth, which is the dangerous thing that men and women both do to each other. Again, if you want to turn them off, start with the criticism. So no. Raise them up, edify them, thank them, be grateful for them, and then say, by the way, one thing I'm aware of, and this is my thing that I'm aware of, it's the other part, issues of ownership.
Yeah.
So she wasn't saying what you did was wrong. She said, what I'm aware of is when you do that, I feel put off by that, and it may get in the way of a third date.
Yeah.
That is probably the most conscious, self-aware, and owned response, I would suggest, in that context, because it's done from a place that's not attacking. Because the thing is, what she said, nowhere in there did she say what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
She just simply said, what you're doing, I feel challenged by.
Mm-hmm.
Way different. This is breaking down codependency as well, because it's like, it's not, I'm upset because of you. No, I'm aware that when you do that, I start to feel this way. So yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you. And what I said is, not only are you owning it, thank you for acknowledging that, and starting out with why you went out a second time and why you really would be happy to go out a third time. And if he really wants to take you out a third time, he will be okay about working on it. Because other women might have not gone out with him another time for this very thing. And if you have enough things, you're like, I really want to get to know him better, but I cannot concentrate on getting to know him better if he's going to blah, blah, blah. And to see what he will do about it. And I thought that's a good carrot for him too, that if it's worth it to him, he will think about it.
Exactly. In fact, the other thing I want to add to that also is it's quite possible because of all the women who didn't ask questions, didn't go on a second date, didn't inquire about that because they felt this way. They just simply said, I'm not going to date him again, without saying why. Mm-hmm. He may not be, I mean, it's sad as it sounds, he probably isn't even aware he's been doing it or that he's upsetting anybody. So it is one of the things where sometimes we have habits that are so ingrained, it takes a while to retrain them. But if the investment is there, the willingness is there, like you were saying, if he is willing to make it worthwhile for himself, mm-hmm. then changing behavior is going to be something he can do. And so the good news is that even if the date doesn't go beyond the third date, he's now better for the next one after that. So it's a win-win.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So another thing I've heard from women a lot, he's such a braggart. You know, I don't want to hear about all his jobs and his cars and his awards. And I'm like, yeah, I know they want to lead with that because they really want us, if they're good guys, you want us to like you. You want us to admire you. You want us to think you're cool. You want us to see that I'm a good provider. I can stick up for you or whatever in the heck is the point of it.
Right.
It can be so off-putting to women though, because we automatically don't hear that's the way it is, that you're doing this for a really good reason. We think you're just being an ass. It's really sad.
I would agree with that because the thing is for me, excuse me a second.
Poor Barry has COVID.
Yes. So.
And he's still here. What a trooper.
Yes. Gonna make it happen.
I know. Little COVID doesn't get you down.
Nothing's to stop me. No, damn it. The show's no work. Forget the hurricanes, forget the COVID, we're getting this done. Yes, thankfully our producer was out of a line of the hurricane. She was close, but she was out of a line. So thankfully that's a big relief as well. So the show goes on, which is good. Anyway,
There
back
you
to the point. Is that positioning where it's almost like he's trying to sell himself to her. And it's generally men doing it to women, not so much women doing it to men.
Yeah.
That is really like, if she values me enough, she'll like me, she'll marry me, sort of thing. Is the mindset running through the guy's head. He doesn't realize what he's doing is driving her away by being too self-interested,
grandizing.
Yeah, absolutely, self-aggrandizement. Yes, absolutely. So the thing is, one of the biggest gifts I think anybody can have when they're dating, I'll say this right now, we said it in one of the shows, is self-awareness. Notice how you're acting, how you're being, what's going on. Because one of the greatest things about connecting with somebody else is the easiest way to create connection is to be honest. And if you're aware of what you're doing or not doing, you go, I need to tell you something. I'm just discovering I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling like I want to tell you stuff because it makes me feel like you might like me more. And she might be more attracted to that because it's so honest and real. And he's aware that he's been doing that. But there are the exceptions to the rule, the ones that do turn women off, the ones that think that that's all they need to do. They have all the trophies and the prizes, but none of the content. And just for anybody listening to this show, women love content. I'll say that right up front. Some women don't, but most women do. So it's important to share about who you are, not what you've done and what you've got.
Yeah. And another way to soften it is, if you feel inclined to say things that are your accomplishments, then ask us, well, what's something you're really passionate about? What was your favorite thing about your last job? What's something that you've always wanted to do and you're working on now or thinking about, so that it feels more equal. It feels like you're more including us, because it's not something generally, there are women that will, but most women generally will not brag. Well, it's hard for me to get them to brag on their profiles, for gosh sakes.
Right.
So they're often not going to do it on a first meeting. So if the guy asks us and we get to talk about it because they asked us, that is very helpful. And it will soften what you want to say about you, because I'm not telling you not to say it. This is just, don't just blah. Don't just regurgitate it all without taking a breath and not asking us.
It is an interesting dance to have that to and fro and the quality of communication on both sides. One of my favorite ones I've asked before when I've been on dates or asked with friends on dates is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how old you are, because it always gives you it opens a sense of wonder. It may not actually create a result. So some people say, I'm doing what I wanted to be when I grow up, maybe, or I moved on from that. But see, the thing about those sort of questions, this is just an example, is when you ask questions about them that gives them something to think about, not just what do you have for lunch today, or what's your favorite color, or what's your astrological sign. It's like content is valuable. Again, it's what's inside. It's important in the communication. So it's worthwhile to do that. And when you don't, when you shut that down, or you just play with just the surface data points, because the problem is, and I'm going to say this bluntly, there are many matchmakers, that's all they deal with is surface points. And the ones I love dearly, the ones who do the deep work, like I do in my coaching. The thing with people who are presenting themselves as surface only because they think it's what's needed, they end up meeting somebody else who's also surface only, and there's nothing there. So the odds of a real relationship happening are very slim. So having the willingness to go deep, to ask inquiring questions, to ask rich questions, is where the fun is, where the joy is. This, again, that belonged in last week's episode.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a really good talk too. So I really need to add this, even though it's not a word, it's an action. It is so off-putting to women. If you touch us often somewhere during our first time, we're talking and you reach out and like, nice, friendly. I'm not saying anything's horrible, aggressive at all, even. I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but just touching, just breaking that fourth wall. If you go to plays, the audience and the play people are normally not talking to each other. There's fun. I think it's fun when they end up doing that, but generally you don't do that. And what you want is to be so engaging that the woman touches you first, because that gives you permission to now touch her back. I have to tell you, that's the third complaint lately about, gosh, they're just they're wanting to touch me too soon, and it's not comfortable for me. I haven't given them permission yet. And I love that a man's, physical and likes touching and likes being touched. And I think that's really great. You just need to wait
Yeah.
and say, as you get close to the end of the date, you know, I'd like a hug. How do you feel about a hug at the end of the date? Or, even shaking hands is still touching, or holding hands if you're going to walk another place. I suggest erring on the side of asking. Even
Yeah.
though I told you about the poll that was really close about women that wanted to be asked a kiss, the first kiss, and the man and the women who didn't want to be asked, it was very close. There was only 10 points difference in a couple hundred women. So, oh my God, you poor guys are really left out in the cold. I just say err on asking. Just
Yeah.
something. Don't just touch.
True indeed. Yes, I absolutely agree. The thing about it is boundaries and having respect for each other. And when men don't respect a woman's boundary by at least asking first or being asked or invited to touch, is a massive no-no. That's a turn-off right there. For very few women, is that good news? I mean, yeah, if you got the passion of rise, both of you, and you're spend a night together in deep bliss, great, no problem. But that's not the case for most people. And the truth is that with the dating dynamics, the physical boundaries sometimes is the last one to fall, so to speak, or to drop, versus the emotional and mental and spiritual. So to have patience enough to, if you really are wanting to touch her, ask at least. Don't say, I thought you were going to ask me, so I just jumped ahead. It's like, no. Ask permission. Permission's in. They have the saying about it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Not in this case. Ask permission up front.
And one of the challenges too is to put your hand out there. See if she puts her hand back. She might not. You have to pull it back an empty hand. It's like that walk of shame you guys had to do in junior high all the way across the room, and you might come back empty-handed. Buck up, bucko.
Yep.
I mean, really, there's times you just have to be the guy and go, oh, well. Or at the end of the date, don't grab, but put your arms out. Be open, be welcoming. See if she's willing to walk into your arms or if she sticks out her hand. It's not
Yep.
always bad. It might be she's just not ready.
Mhm.
It feels personal, I know. Better to err on, okay, she's not ready. Let's see if she wants to go out another time, then come in for this big bear hug, and now she's going to say no, thank you, because
Yeah.
she doesn't feel you respected her boundaries.
It's so simple in some ways, yet so complicated.
You think, but people flub it up all the time.
Yeah, so that's that. I'll say one thing after that flub point. You just pointed out a good point. Is the challenge for a lot of people is that if they flub up and they make a mistake on the first date, they think it's over, done, kaput, never gonna have a chance. Like you said earlier about the woman who basically went to the man and said, I don't go out again. However, the chewing with your mouth is too much. Like, it is possible. It is possible to overcome those initial faux pas and mistakes and things you shouldn't, quote, have done. If you watch our episodes, you'll probably be much better at this anyway. Is that then there's the opportunity to have a do-over. Not to assume it, but to ask for it and be humble, be clean, and ask. You never know. It might be okay.
You never know. Oh, Barry, that's such a good point. Thanks for making that.
Sure.
So it's funny. Almost every woman on her profile says, I want him to be funny. I want him to have a sense of humor. I want him to make me laugh. And guys really like making us laugh. They pay attention to what they think happened that made us laugh. They're not always sure, but they like making us laugh a lot.
Yep. True.
And if they see us across the room laughing, it's like a magnet. And so then I tell women it's really important in your profile to say, well, what do you think is funny? Be kind of specific about it, because not everybody thinks the same thing is funny. Right. And so be careful on the first meeting, especially about saying something that you think is really funny, because it could be so taken wrong and so off-putting. And one of the things that's really extra sensitive right now is gender stuff and sexist stuff. It seems like people are even more women are more hypersensitive. And I'm sorry, it does kind of make you guys have to walk on eggshells a little. But I tell them, think a second time before you say it. And if you hear me on your shoulder going, or even just a little hesitant, wait till you get to know them better. Or even if you're going to be really brave, we've talked about being brave is, I have this thing I'd really like to say, and I so don't mean offense. I mean, don't you just know it's going to be offensive when somebody says that? But okay, say it anyway. Because if it's really who you are, this is who you need to show who you are. Try not to put your both feet in your mouth right out of the gate, though. I mean, that's what I worry about, especially for you guys, because you do it so unwittingly and so innocently. And we just go, oh my God. And we'll tell 14 friends about how uncouth you were. And so Barry and I are here to keep helping you not do that.
I love that. It is something that, I mean, we talk about this many times before on the show about how we're not raised with these skills. So basically, when you discover you made a faux pas or made a mistake, crossed the line, whatever it was, blaming yourself is one thing, but to blame yourself because you didn't know better is like, that's not effective. So if you're aware that you made a mistake, what can you do? Either one, to clean it up, or two, to do something different next time. And I mean, if you, again, watching our show is good for your dating success. That's why it's called Let's Talk Dating, because we talk about this stuff. And to understand that these principles are not usually taught in high school, kindergarten, junior school, family dynamics, none of it's taught there. So
I wish.
Knowing what turns a man or woman off. Do your mum or dad ever tell you that? No, mine never did.
Okay. We all know Barry and I like talking about sex. We're happy talking about sex, and we're really happy for you to talk about sex. Maybe not at the first meeting, please.
Right.
And I hear a lot of complaints, mostly from women. And when I quiz my male clients, they go, well, sometimes they'll bring it up, or they'll say some, innuendo, and I don't know what to do with it. So women, if you're not prepared to have a greater conversation, don't bring it up. If you want to have the conversation on the first date about how much you like it and how much do they like it, and can you keep up with each other, and what's your favorite position, then my blessings. If that's not where your comfort zone is, and you are going to be one of those people that, oh my God, they brought it up on the first date, then don't give the opening. Please don't give the opening. And guys, don't initiate the opening.
Right.
And then I've even told a couple guys, if they bring it up, watch where they've put the line and stay on that side of the line. Stay with what they said. Don't move forward. I know you're really excited and you want to, and you have lots of thoughts about it, and you don't mean any harm. This is the same way with wait for us to touch you. Wait for us to set the tone. Yeah, there's exceptions to all these rules. And I know there's women out there going, well, I really want them to be aggressive, and I want them to put, the first foot forward. Well, then tell them, because I'm going to keep telling guys, please pace yourself, because the general population of women would prefer pacing.
Yeah.
They want to give you the green light in these subtle, like the goodbye thing. If you put your arms out and I hug you, I will make it really clear. I will put my face in the place where you're given permission to kiss it. If I'm not, I will keep my head over by your head, and then I will back up and let go. I give I don't have to say it out loud. You're going to know I'm ready for a kiss, or I'm not. So the same way with this sexual conversations or beginnings, watch the lead from the women, please. Please. Yeah. You'll keep yourself out of lots of hot water, I think, most of the time.
It sounds so simple, but boy, do we keep putting our foot in our mouths.
I keep thinking these are so, doesn't everybody know this? And I go, well, no, because you hear every day that everybody doesn't know this. So lucky them that we talk about it.
Absolutely.
We spill the beans.
Indeed. We do. So something else about what turns men and women off. I want to say, start with this one, explain more detail. It's having mismatched values. One of the things that happens in dating and stuff is oftentimes in the dating profile or the matching system, whatever we're using to meet somebody, or going to the pub and meet somebody that way, is we don't always know much about that person's position in life, about their spiritual habits, their political ones, their physical ones, their dietary ones, all these different things. Sometimes it's in the profile, sometimes it's not. Which is why I keep saying, we said a lot of times, take your time and be patient so you don't keep jumping the gun, because if you have crossed that line into something a bit more intimate, you haven't found out this person has diametrically opposed views on something that you hold very dear to yourself, it's going to be very uncomfortable to get out of that position. So to take the time to get to know what their values are, what their preferences are, what they think is important, is a great place to get to meet somebody and to know where they're coming from so you can match them where they are. But oftentimes we ignore that and we just think we're going to hope that they match them because they look good, or they sound good, or they feel good, and that'll be enough.
Yep. And oh, isn't that a dance on the first meeting? You know, do you bring up politics? Do you bring up religion? Do you bring up money? I mean, all of that is tender and taboo and can set people off. And it's kind of crazy, especially nowadays. And so to say, gosh, this is what I saw in the news recently and what I thought about it or felt about it, without necessarily saying this is my own personal drop dead belief, and then see if the other person can at least have that conversation. Because if you start out with, oh, we're diametrically opposed in this one thing, we can't even have any more of a conversation, you didn't even get to practice. Even if they're not the right person, I want people to take advantage of, you got a person sitting in front of you, let's practice asking questions, learning about yourself, getting more comfortable with each conversation you're having with somebody. So I'm not saying don't be truthful. I'm just saying pace yourself again, unless this is just the most important thing in the world, that you're not going to go out with somebody that doesn't go to church every week and doesn't read the Bible every night, that's just the most important thing. Then okay, bring it up and be that firm about it.
But it better be in your profile, though.
I'm hoping if I wrote it is, because sometimes they'll send me their things and I'm like, well, we've been talking and these are all these things you told me that are really important. You didn't say that in there. I think we need to. They go, oh, you make really good changes. I go, yeah.
Well, hello.
Yeah, it's what you're paying me to do. So that's so important that you've really read their profile, and then maybe you've had a conversation or two on the phone or on Skype or Zoom or FaceTime, and you've gotten that out of the way of whatever it is they said. Just there you are asking questions and clarifying so that you're not assuming before you get there. What area of comfort are you going to personally have to have a conversation about these important, deep subjects to you? I mean, I'm fine with second, third time, start having those conversations. But the first time, to just be a little lighthearted and not be so heavy. Because that's another thing that I've heard is very off-putting, that people just want to get to the nitty-gritty. You know, I have a half an hour, let's get this over with. Well, I keep saying I want dating to be fun, and that doesn't sound fun to me.
I would agree with you. The thing that with that, I'd say is that the challenge is sometimes, and that's why I say, if you got something that's important to you, put it in your damn profile, because then when you meet somebody, they already know about you.
Yeah.
So unless they come spawning for a fight, you know going in, this person's not going to be the antithesis to what you believe.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's good to have, I won't say a list, but having a focus or a style of approach that can be lighthearted and easy on the first day. Because yes, some stuff is going to be important to talk about, but once you find out if you like each other first, if you don't have to go to the deep questions yet. You can just simply go on, wish you luck with your life, and after you can go, phew, dodged the bullet, even if you feel that way. You don't tell them that, you tell yourself that.
Yeah. That's the internal conversation. Yes. And so that leads to nobody likes feeling interrogated or interviewed. And that's what that style of dating feels like. It's like, oh, it's exhausting. It feels intrusive. It doesn't feel honoring at all. And you don't really, the few times this happened to me, I didn't feel like they were really interested in getting to know me. They were interested in seeing about this point. Tell me more about this point. I'm like, okay, that was not fun.
No, because they wanted to have a position they could stand on and say, see, there I'm right. That's back to the right versus happy piece.
Yeah.
We have that trap we fall into when we make assumptions about our dates before we know them that well, and then we think we're right when they prove us wrong. It's like, oh my God, how could they? But the truth is, again, as we talked about earlier, spending time getting to know somebody to discover where you in fact did make assumptions, where you can actually ask questions that are of value to you and them, that make the conversation more rich and more fulfilling. Much better.
So much better. So then there's also the list of the words that turn men off that women say that are like, fine. And this is how our face looks when we're fine. There's nothing fine about this
No.
face.
Fine
You
is
are on
deep.
red alert. The nuclear warning has gone off.
Yeah. Fine is basically the catch-all for everything that dangerous could happen to us. So if she says fine, unless you're talking about the weather and the weather is fine, that's one thing. But in terms of other contexts, that word is lethal.
Lethal.
Because it covers once it covers, but it opens up the space to a multitude of sins.
Yes.
So not recommended to you to face that one and try to have an answer, because you can't win. Just give it up. You're done.
There's nothing helpful about fine. And do it your way. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That means you're going to lose. You're screwed.
Oh, yeah. Another one similar to that is go right ahead. Similar vein, because it's almost like a dare, saying you go right ahead. I'm going to watch you crash and burn, but don't worry about it. Just go right ahead. Not good.
And you know what's wrong, or you should know what's wrong. How come you don't know what's wrong?
Yeah, you should know better.
Yes.
Lethal.
We, as women, generally are not clear about why we're upset, what upset us, what could you do differently next time, how you could undo what you did to upset us. And we weren't taught. This is what we learned from our mothers, and they learned from their mothers, and it's been going on for generations. And you and I are working very diligently to break this because all these words don't help anybody. You're not going to get your needs met of this thing that you're so upset about. And he's going to feel helpless and hopeless about ever pleasing you if this keeps coming up. And he'll stop trying. And how sad is that?
Oh, it's heinous in a way, because it's so, I won't say it's obvious, but it has a level of, you kind of know on a subtle level, not a blatant level, that what you're about to walk into is a minefield.
Yeah.
So step back gently, gingerly, and carefully, so you don't fall into that trap, because that's lethal.
Yeah. The other thing that turns us off because we don't understand is when you say, I just need to leave for a minute. No, you have to stay here. We have to work this out. I feel dismissed and uncared about, and I hate it that you're saying you're going to leave. We hate when you say that. We just hate it. It makes us feel abandoned. Even if we don't have bad attachment problems, we still feel really dismissed and uncared about.
It's the thing that almost feels like we're clutching at straws, that we're so afraid we're going to lose that we'll grasp onto anything, which is going to be not effective no matter what we do. It's like all you're doing is pulling everything down with you. So energetically, what I'm thinking is like, just fall back and let go and see what and land on your feet, basically. It's much safer. Yeah.
And the other big thing that comes up is mansplaining. We don't like it when we feel like you're mansplaining to us. Do you want to defend the entire Y chromosome population about that one, Barry?
Not really, because it's frustrating that it's something that men have been accused of, because men have basically forgotten something, which is that women are intelligent. So be clear about that up front. And the challenge oftentimes is we think that we're talking to a 5-year-old when we're not. So the mansplaining piece, it is a great term to just stop us in the tracks, because it's not we're explaining it, but attempting to minimize the person we're speaking to and sharing to. So to let go of that and to be aware enough, educated enough, conscious enough to recognize the person who's listening actually may understand it. If anything, you say, I'd love to know what you thought I said, or have you heard this, so I can be clear that I communicate what I was trying to communicate. Because the part of it is, oftentimes what mansplaining is we think that she doesn't understand, therefore we must do our level best to make sure she understands. Meanwhile, she's already understood it, and moved on. So asking the question invites a response that allows us to have a elevated conversation, because we're not in a place of going, I'm going to keep pushing this point home until she gets it, because she's not showing me she's got it yet, because we don't get it. But to have the understanding that what we're dealing with here is a different level of understanding that we haven't understood. So we ask the questions like, you do me a favor, can you let me know what you heard? Because I want to make sure I did give you the information I wanted to give you.
So helpful. Thank you. Because I explain this with my lovely female voice, and it's so nice to have on video Barry explaining it with his wonderful male voice, saying, this is what they're really doing, ladies. And so for you to say, gosh, just want to clarify, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And for the woman to go, oh, maybe he has good intentions. Maybe he's not being a jerk and an ass. And maybe
Right.
I can say, I think I really do understand this part. I might not understand this part. Would you explain that part better? But to have grace for each other about, well, maybe I'm going to say I just need to explain this because I want to make sure I'm explaining it well. I want to make sure I'm saying it clearly. And it's partly thanks for being my audience, and partly I think you might understand this, but I want to make sure I'm clearly saying it, where you take some of the onus back on yourself as well.
Right.
Because we are sensitive creatures and we get in our feelings a lot. And then the world is not as pretty of a place when we're all in our hurt feelings. Mm-hmm. So for both of us to take responsibility of, oh, I know this feeling. Wow, this is feeling really awful. Maybe I need to ask a little more of them. And maybe they need to check in with me a little more. Boy, that's as hard as the Argentine tango. I've now decided to call it because it has a lot of really cool movements, and you step on each other's toes if you don't do it right. And it's so sexy and elegant if you get it right. But it is that much conscious thought to do that kind of a conversation with both of you are having a lot of emotion about it.
Oh, yeah. Argentine tango is definitely fun. I've done it a few times and definitely have room to improve. I'll say that much.
It's fun to learn, though, because you get to hold each other really close.
That's kind of the joy, and it can be very sexy physically because you can definitely dance off each other, which means you can really use the synergy and the balance of the two of you together creates an incredible sexy vibration. So yes, Argentine tango is fun, especially when you trust each other.
Yes. So when I talk about this very challenging thing that we just addressed about both people are feeling a little hot under the collar, and both people might be feeling a little dismissed, and both people are feeling like they need to make their point. If you could picture the Argentine tango and go, oh, the goal is to get back to being sexy with each other, and know there's a little struggle involved. It's clicked with some people, not everybody, but some people have gone, okay, drop back into yourself and stop being up in 12, because that's what we do. We get very 12 when we get our feelings altered.
Absolutely.
And then you feel 12 because you hurt our feelings.
And it's nobody wins then. It's just a bunch of kids running around upset with each other.
It's not good. Even on an elementary school playground, it's not a pretty sight.
No, definitely not. Not recommended.
So if you've recognized yourself in any of these things that we've mentioned, because Barry and I talk about how we've done all these things in our lives, which is how we're so good at teaching, because we've learned how to mostly stop doing them. And we know what to do when they come up. When we do, we know how to handle it, right? That's the important thing.
Yes, indeed.
You can reach out to either one of us to get some helpful coaching. So the best way to reach out to me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Because the reason I came up with the name of my company is that you learn how to be the perfect catch, and then you will attract the perfect catch. Mm-hmm. And you click on what's holding you back from love to have a complimentary conversation with me. You can also join my email list, and you'll get replays of this podcast and any tidbits that I send out in between. You can also send me a personal email at christine@theperfectcatch.com. Oh, also on my website, you can reach all of my social media at Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube with their little symbols on the bottom. Doesn't matter what the address is, you just click on the symbol.
Simple and effective. I love it.
I know. I've sure made my life so much easier. I'm so happy.
Oh, yeah. It's good to get good help.
Tell people how to reach you, Mr. Selby.
So the way you reach me is through my website, which is my name, so it's even easier to find it. I don't have to come up with a name about my site. It's just my name. It's easy, simple. So go to barryselby.com. I've had a few domains over the years, so having just my name is so much easier to remember and ask people to tell people about. My site, as been saying for months now, is still getting updated, but at least now it's working to the point where you can go on the site and you can click on the homepage and set up a discovery session with me. I refer it back to a discovery session from a paid session. There's going to be something else there at some point. I haven't finished building it yet, so stay tuned for that. And also at the bottom of the home screen, there's a link to join my email list where like Christine, I send out replays of the shows and anything I'm doing, summits or talks or insights I have along the way, because frankly, it's here to help you. So definitely join our email list. It's worth it. And I'm on social media platforms the same way too. Every platform except for Instagram, it's Barry Selby. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube,
TikTok, whatever it's called now.
Clubhouse, all those things. Instagram is the one that changed, which is the real Barry Selby. Actually, Threads, which is based from Instagram, use the same account. So basically, I'm the real Barry Selby on both places. But basically, you can find me, check me out, follow my work. And on my emails, if you do join me on my list, I do have a lot of my emails. I have a list of all my social media links as well, just to be part of the conversation.
So fancy we are.
We are indeed.
And we're here every week on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and every time in between. So we love for you to join us live and make comments to what we're saying. Or if you're watching this on a replay, please send us questions or comments or like and share and tell your friends that are having trouble with their dating and relationships about us. Share our videos with them. That would be so fabulous.
And if
you would be a whole pay it forward thing. It's really helpful for you to get it out for other people. We're just going to make the world a happier place.
That's our job. That's our goal. And so, yes, sending the videos. But if you're somebody like me who likes to listen to podcasts when you're on the road or traveling or walking, whatever, you can actually listen to our shows now on Apple Podcasts, on Google, Amazon, Netflix, all different places you want to listen to podcasts. Spotify, you can find us there. Just look for Let's Talk Dating, and you can definitely follow us and listen wherever you go and share that with your friends as well.
Yeah, you can take us wherever you go.
Yes.
A little check-in with how am I doing in my dating life? We'll just check in and look at an episode that fits what is going on in my life.
Yeah. Cool.
So we will see you again next week. I'm sure Barry will be feeling even better. You look really good for somebody who's sick.
I survived. This is only the third day, 2.5 days of COVID so far. And so I should be done well before next week, because it's supposed to be 5 days, they say. And if it's like the last time I COVID, I was pretty much okay within like 3 or 4 days, because I didn't get hit that hard. I'm so grateful, because I've got friends of mine who end up in hospital and stuff. So thankful for the light dusting of COVID.
Yeah, you're good constitution.
Yes, indeed, I do.
See you next week.
Take care of yourselves.